Just a request to all the participants, if you're not speaking, please mute your mic. That will be great. So right now we are good to go, Rachit and Debashish.
All right. Thanks, Paresh. So welcome everyone to another session on Dynamics 365 User Group India. We will start with a quick group introduction, and then we will hand it over to Debashish for this session. And then towards the end, we will also talk about what's coming next. So please stay tuned in with us till the end of the session. Please also note that these sessions are recorded, and the views expressed in these sessions are expressed by the speakers, and they do not represent the views of their employers or Microsoft. So we quickly start. Know your group, guys. So this is a group focused on knowledge sharing, building connections, and growing together for the Microsoft Dynamics 365 professionals. We are present on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and we are already 375 plus members since we launched back in June. So thanks everyone who has joined us and who is being part of this journey, and who are encouraging us and giving feedback. These are our logos, so if you have any feedback, let us know. But this is what we came as our group logos. Just know your volunteer. So in case you guys have any questions or queries, or if you want to know more about this group, feel free to reach out to one of us. We have Paresh based in Brisbane, Rahul based in India, Satya is based in Sydney, and Umesh is based in India, and I am based in Melbourne. So we all are working together and spending a lot of time after our office hours and on weekdays and personal time to drive the group forward. So do stay connected with us, give us feedback, and let us know how we can collaborate in a better way and how we can improve the knowledge sharing, what we are trying to do in this group. Today we have Debashish Ray and Prashant Thotla. I highly regard both of them for their knowledge, and they have done some amazing work in their field. They carry a lot of good experience of Microsoft Dynamics 365, and they will be giving us a walkthrough of warehouse management overview in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. So without taking much time, I will hand it over to Debashish now. Debashish, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachit. That was a nice introduction. I'm just going to share my screen and start talking. I hope you can see my screen, guys. If not, all right. So, hello, folks. I hope everyone is doing good, keeping well, and enjoying their Sunday. Let me start with a quick introduction of mine. I am Debashish Ray. I am currently working with Belrada and based out of Melbourne, Australia, since the start of 2020. Before that, I worked in India from Delhi and Hyderabad. So it's been close to 15 years in the world of Microsoft Dynamics, AX then, and FinOps now. I've been fortunate enough to have been associated with some great organizations in this journey, projects and colleagues globally. Before Dynamics, before starting on Dynamics as an applications consultant, I spent about 4 years as an engineering professional in the manufacturing and production domain. That was my quick summary. I will let Prashant talk quickly about himself before I take over.
Hi team, I'm Prashant Thotla, and I have almost 15 years of experience with in IT, and around 8 years of experience in Dynamics. So I'm currently working for Dell EMC Technologies, and I've been with Dell for 13 plus years. I moved out to Columbus, and again I'm back to Dell again. So it's an extensive manufacturing experience I have with Dell, and their architecture is really complex, and it's a great challenging work environment with Dell. And so it's 8 years of experience, which includes both AX12 as well as Dynamics 365. I specialize in warehousing as well as manufacturing. So yeah, that's about me. Thank you.
Great, Prashant. Thank you. All right, moving on. Index today's agenda. I will start by giving an understanding to the audience on what a warehouse is, structure of a typical warehouse, basically what goes on in a warehouse. Then I will talk about some basic concepts, definitions, followed by giving an overview of key setups of the D365 warehousing module. That will then be followed by a few demos by my co-presenter Prashant. And briefly, before Prashant takes over, if time permits, Rachit will give a quick round on how the mobile device app is actually set up using the Azure Jazz, the portal, I mean. So let's get started then. So guys, what's a warehouse? What comes to your mind when we say a warehouse? Something like this, isn't it? Well, technically this is a warehouse, but what's unique about this warehouse? Let me give you 10 to 15 seconds to think about it. Maybe post your comments in the chat box. Anything that comes to your mind about a warehouse like this? What do you think about this warehouse? Do you think it's a good warehouse, a bad warehouse?
Not organized.
It's a funny place to be in.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, it's indeed a warehouse, but with multiple problems. You can see the inventory is cluttered, unorganized, and jumbled, and whole host of deeper problems that we can think of. There is obviously no clear visibility on the stock. Inventory data most probably be inaccurate. Customer order fulfillment will be a pain, and cost of maintaining such a warehouse will be really high. I mean, obviously, there won't be any well-defined or executed warehouse processes either. Not to mention the safety issues or the valuable time and energy that's being wasted. So all in all, very inefficient place to be. So it will be a nightmare, isn't it, to manage such a warehouse? But well, however, in a problem, there lies an opportunity. And this is what we work on as consultants. Business problems like these are tackled by robust ERP systems like D365 Finance and Operations, coupled with organizational change management efforts to improve the warehousing processes. One must fully understand that the problems and the business requirements to be able to develop the most effective solution. So anyways, let's move on. So obviously it's a waste house, not to mention, but what's a warehouse then? How does a good warehouse look like? Something like this, if you reckon. So if we compare this one with the previous one, what do you find most remarkable here? Things that you notice. You can again use the chat window to put your comments, but I'll go on. I will say that there are clearly defined areas. You can see designated locations. You can see designated zones. I will use the pointer so that. So you see that these are all designated areas. We have racks, aisles, shelves, and bins where the inventory is neatly stacked. We have people moving around. We have equipments that people are driving. We have different zones and areas. So a basic principle on which a good warehouse operates, is its high customer service level versus a lower inventory versus lower cost. So it's all about finding a fine balance between these three elements, and managing such a warehouse would be a charm, obviously, with D365 Finance and Operation. And moving on, let's now try to understand warehousing in the supply chain in a broader supply chain context. You can see in this most simplistic diagram that it's all about transfer of information from between the supply chain participants. We have a manufacturer sitting in the middle, supplier that may be supplying raw materials to this manufacturer, and an end user. If it is a B2B, then let's say a retailer or an end customer. As you can see, this guy, poor guy, is driving a cart from a retail shop. So like a sales order starts the work for the manufacturer to deliver finished goods, and a sales order from manufacturer to the vendor or a supplier starts the raw material delivery work. So as you can see here, in its most simplistic depiction, the inventory is being supplied, inventory is being received, offloaded by a worker, being put away into a warehouse, and from the warehouse, the raw material is being transferred to another, let's say a sub warehouse. It could be a site, a warehouse within a single site, and so on. inventory is being transferred, most probably a raw material, and again being released back to the distribution warehouse, which is in this case is a finished good. The inventory gets packed, processed before it's loaded onto a container, a shipping container, and delivered to the end customer. And the cycle pretty much repeats at the warehouse where it gets delivered to. So there are people working in the warehouse. There are work being undertaken for moving inventory from one place to another at different point in times. So in short, warehouse is quite central to the entire supply chain. Now let's move on. Let me take you through a closer look at the layout of a typical warehouse. As you can see, there are different designated areas. There are receiving areas. Well, this is a typical warehouse. It doesn't represent any specific warehouse. It's just a model, and a model to understand what a warehouse actually is all about and how it looks like. So there is a receiving area. Let's say this blue box represents that. There are storage areas. There are bulk storages. The yellow strip represent bulk storages. The blue one represent pick storages, pick locations. And then there could be some specialty areas, freezer location, depending on the type of inventory being handled. There are staging locations just before the shipment is manifested onto a container, shipping container. The shipment may get through sorting or rearrangement or shipping labels being printed and so on. Moving on to the right-hand side, we have the top view is we have some receiving docks where the trucks are docked and the inventory is being offloaded, being taken through the quality control into the storage locations. And then depending on the packing or the business requirements, the inventory may pass through the packing area before it gets delivered out to customers. So in typical life cycle of a warehouse work, like I said, incoming material is being received in receiving location and can be put away either to bulk location or straight to the dispatch location. From bulk location, replenishment picking or order picking may happen, which might fill these picking areas. So we have storage locations or bulk locations, and inventory is constantly being replenished into the picking areas. And obviously it happens so that if there is an order for loose items, the warehouse workers go to the picking area and pick up the loose items, or if the order is for the full pallet or full containers, then the storage location can fulfill those orders. We'll talk about more of this in the upcoming slides. So moving on, we have a picking area where order picking is happening. The order picking could be happening directly from bulk to the staging or the shipping location, or it could be replenishment picking that's happening from picking to the Picface or picking locations. Then we have packing, and packing in some cases could be optional. If we are not doing immediate packing after picking, then the items are required to be taken to a designated packing area where a packing container is being built. It's an exclusive packing area for that purpose. After packing, the inventory travels to the staging location near the bay door and then loaded onto the shipping containers. So in all this, there are warehouse workers doing the work of moving inventory around, or in other words, picking and putting away are continuously happening. And that's quite central to the advanced warehousing in D365. It's the core. It's about effectively generating these works and finding appropriate locations so that these then could be executed on the go with the help of a mobile device. However, it's not as easy as it sounds. There are various rules, various logics on how the inventory should be handled, picked, and moved around, apart from the structure of the warehouse. So apart from these core works, we have some value-added services like stock taking or cycle counting, quality inspections, and so on. All right, moving on. I wanted to I will show some pictures in these few slides to sort of give you a better visualization on how these locations look like, So the first one is receiving location. Depending on the receipt volume, we can have an automated conveyor belt. As you can see on your top left, conveyor belts are receiving these carton boxes, which can then be manually offloaded. Or these carton boxes can come in a truck and can be offloaded with the help of a forklift. This guy driving this equipment is a forklift driver, and this equipment is called a forklift. Material gets stacked at the receiving area, waiting to be inspected or put away. As I said, as a value-added service, or material can be taken directly to the bulk area, which we'll see in the next slide. If you're familiar with D365 F&O, you could reckon with this RECV location, which we set up usually at the warehousing parameters page. So this could be a default location for a warehouse or globally in FinOps where all the purchase receipts are happening. A vendor would typically send an ASN, which is an advanced shipping notification for the supply chain participant to then sort of plan the offloading schedule, because we can't simply just on the go receive these kind of inventories. It has to be properly planned, and a proper advance notification must be given, because then these guys have to plan for labor, what kind of equipments are or will be available at that time, and so on. Number of packages being uploaded, the load weight, and so on. So as you can see on your right bottom, this guy is offloading inventory, which have just been arrived, and he's kind of building a pallet, which is nothing but a license plate in D365 F&O parlance. However, license plate could have different strategies, but for the most simplistic understanding of what a license plate is, it's just the pallet ID where items are being offloaded and being prepared to be taken off to the bulk location. So the next is bulk location. Well, like I said previously, goods typically move to a reserve storage location, which is known as a bulk location. So this guy in the middle is trying to put away a pallet full of carton boxes or sealed boxes, as we may call it as, into a rack. FinOps warehouse management system based on the location directive setups and location selection strategies allocates the best put away location to place the goods. System also takes into account the SKU dimensions, volume, weight information, and compare all of that with the location's volumetric capacity. Family of products, let's say if we are dealing with hazardous chemicals or a different kind of product that need to be stacked at a designated zone, those things are handled while the work is being created to put away from a receiving location to the bulk location. So once the logic runs, warehouse work is created, warehouse put away work is created, which is then executed with the help of a mobile device on the go. So this is the bulk location. You can see there are these are called shelves. This is a rack. These are shelves, and within the shelf there could be one or two bins. So there is an aisle. This is an aisle in a warehouse. These are different racks: rack 1, rack 2, rack 3, and so on. And these are shelf 1, shelf 2, shelf 3, and within a shelf there are bins. So this is the concept of aisle, rack, shelf, and bin in the most simplistic term. All right, this was about put away. On the other hand, we have work being executed to pick inventory from the bulk location, and as per the outbound orders, the locations could be the pick locations could be replenished with this inventory, or the inventory could be directly taken to the staging or bay door for shipping manifestation. So as you can see in the middle picture, there are shipment labels affixed on these container boxes. So we can create strategies to generate shipment labels depending on where and when we want to generate it. If we want to generate it at the final shipping location, this can be done. Or if we want to generate it at the time of picking the carton boxes or the full boxes, this can be done at that time. So, sorry, I hear some. All right, I thought there was a question.
Yeah.
All right. So picking work is obviously very labor intensive. Location sorting kind of helps. Again, location sorting is a setup in Dynamics FinOps that kind of helps to generate achieve pick sequencing, because you cannot afford warehouse workers to move from one location at one corner and then directly to another location at another corner, because warehouses runs into square meters of area. So we need to preserve workers' travel time across a warehouse, and that's where location sorting, zoning comes into picture. Right. Moving on. The next is a Picface location. Well, the previous one was a bulk location where full boxes are being picked. Now the next one is a Picface location, and as you can reckon, the full boxes are typically broken down or opened, and individual items or small quantities of items are being picked here. So as you can see, there are gravity-fed, picking process that's happening. This lady is picking some individual items on a cart. She probably might be taking these items to the pack station for packing into a container. Or as you can see on your right, this lady is actually packing while the picking is happening. These are all containers. So she must have picked these containers, and she's directly picking from these the bulk cartons and putting into these containers. So this is a pick phase, and you can see the the location IDs over here as well. We may have demand orders or sales orders for individual items of full cartons or full pallets. So if I take you back to the bulk location, we have full pallets. This is a full pallet. Let's say a customer orders a full pallet, and we may have, like, let's say 15 boxes. I will simply take this pallet out and deliver it to them via shipment. But customer says full pallet, but some loose pieces as well. So then what do? I come to the picking location. I pick these individual items, put it in a box, seal the box, put a label, and then deliver it along with that full pallet. I may have some loose cartons as well, demand of loose cartons. So all these things are being handled by unit sequence grouping in D365 F&O, if I relate it back to the setup that we have. All right, moving on. The next is the packing station. So once the product has been picked, the next logical location, well, this is an optional location, but the logical location is where it is packaged for dispatching. Individual orders could be packed in containers, as you can see on your left-hand side. These are containers or boxes which are being picked, empty boxes. And then that probably lady might have traveled to the packing station, and now she's putting all the picked items into this container. Next, she will be sealing this container and putting a shipping label on it, or any other paperwork that might be required with respect to the dispatch of these boxes. The third picture kind of shows not a full pallet, maybe a pallet with a few boxes, which is being wrapped using a film wrapping and ready to go to a staging location. So this is a staging location. Obviously, from bulk, we know the goods may move through packing and picking and packing to the staging locations. There could be a business need to repalletize this inventory, rearrange. Let's say I've drawn some inventory and I want to kind of repalletize because there is a business requirement to repalletize or regenerate or inspect just before the final manifestation is happening, before loading onto the shipping containers. So this is the location to do that job. In D365 F&O, we have different kinds of work being generated for performing these kind of activities. So this is a bay door, as you can see. Bay door is nothing but where a truck has come and docked, and these are containers. If the volume is high, in this case, you can see these loose containers being fed into these fed via these conveyor rollers into the truck directly, or there is this gentleman who is driving this forklift and waiting for this bay door to open so that he can just simply go into the docked container and place these pallets. Or it could be a requirement. Let's say it's a hazardous chemical, and then they don't want to be doing this, a manifestation at the warehouse. So probably they will have to travel a certain distance and then put it into a container for whatever reasons. If the container is not dockable, if the dock door is small, and so these are all manifestations happening to the bay door. So that's it. Again, in summary, we talked about receiving locations. From receiving, goods move to bulk. We can draw full pallets, cartons, single cartons, or if we want to draw loose inventory, we move the cartons where the cartons are then open for individual quantity picks. And then we may or may not move to a packing location. And then finally, we take everything out of that bay door. So all in all, this is the core. This is the core of what goes on in a warehouse. Before I move on, well, I think I already talked about a lot about the warehouse facility, its layout and its processes. I'm going a little fast, but happy to take any questions if anyone has, or I'll just keep going and give you an overview of key setups of the warehouse management module in D365 F&O. So, Rachi, do we have any questions or anything at this stage?
Yep, there is one question from Sunil. What do you mean by manifestation? If the question is not clear, Sunil, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask it.
So manifestation is putting the carton full of shipment into the container. That's called manifestation.
Thank you.
The load is being manifest. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Hope that answers. If you have more questions, feel free to pop them in the chat window. We are good, Debashish. A lot of love and appreciation and applause.
Thank you. So one important thing to keep in mind is that this module is ever evolving and it's being enriched with newer functionalities, with newer capabilities, in almost every service update from MS, Microsoft. So it's kind of impossible to understand everything in one session, and because there could be several unique perspectives, business scenarios, variations in business cases, and so on. So, anyways, I'll still try to do the justice. I will, in the next few slides, will talk about some basic setups that will need to keep this, get this module up and running. And then that will be followed by some demos by Prashant, demos on the web client as well as using the mobile device. So, all right, all good. Let's move ahead. Inventory setup, the key setups, starting with the inventory. So what I've done, I've put in some screenshots just to save some time here. I've put in some screenshots with a summary, and it will kind of give you an overview of what this setup's all about. This is a storage group setup, storage dimension group setup that is attached to a released product. It determines whether an item or a product in the inventory is using warehouse management or not. This setting activates the inventory dimension, inventory status, and license plates, as you can see over here. These are the moment I check this box up, excuse me, inventory status and license plate comes alive. Then we have reservation hierarchy. So this is an interesting setup. It kind of determines which inventory dimensions are available for reservation for outbound transactions. So for example, dimension for order reservation, anything that's above a location. So here you see we have 6 dimensions. We have site warehouse inventory status, location, license plates, and batch number. So anything above the dimension location in the reservation hierarchy are subjected to a reservation in order lines. It could be a transfer order, sales order, any demand order, any outbound order. Any dimension below location or including location is subject to a reservation in the warehouse, because for example, there could be a product that a customer usually orders from the same batch number every time because customer doesn't want to take any risk, or there is a specialty chemical and there is an expiry happening, or anything. In that case, the batch number will go up. And while we are punching that sales order in, we will have to reserve the inventory at the batch. But for anything else, which could be reserved in the warehouse, depending on where it is lying, which location is the most optimum for reserving that kind of inventory. At the time of order punch, we will simply punch in site warehouse and inventory status and leave the system to decide which batch number, which location or license plate is the most optimum for the reservation to take place, right? So the next one is unit sequence group. Sorry, before that, the significance of license plates, because we talked about the license plates and inventory status coming alive as soon as we enable the storage dimensions. Well, license plates are, as we saw, it's mostly in terms of physical palette. If I put it in a very simplistic form, license plate is nothing but a palette. But we may have a case where multiple items or mixed items being put on a pallet. So in that case, those items will have their individual license plates while they are being put on a pallet with a parent license plate ID. So there, like I have mentioned over here, we can use the unit sequence group mechanism or logic to then determine if we need a license plate for each quantity, or one carton box which might have 10 quantities, or a license plate or a pallet which might have 15 carton boxes. Moving on to the next one, unit sequence group. It controls what measurement or unit of measurements are being used for the generation of warehouse work, for the generation of the pick work. The unit sequence group basically determines the unit that's used for receiving an assigned item. The checkbox license plate grouping, like I said, controls whether a separate license plate per unit or one license plate for the whole quantity is required or generated upon receiving the item. Then we have inventory status. It kind of divides an item into a category of available or not. For example, if inventory is lying for further inspection and it's not available for customer picks or replenishment, then we can place a inventory status of to be inspected or anything which is logical. So we can set up default inventory statuses as well, warehouse wise. But if you want to sort of control the inventory, and if you have very sensitive inventory that you're handling, then you can use the inventory status very extensively in that case. For example, if the inventory is good, but not good enough to be sent out on a customer order, and it should be scrapped, or it should be sent out to some second-hand sale shops. So then you can put a quality, highest quality or lowest quality. It is still pickable on work, but then we'll have to determine what kind of work it should be picked on. All right. So the next one is all right. So once we have all those setups in, then we come to the release product form, and then we apply the reservation hierarchy using this control. We have the unit sequence group ID applied over here, and then we have fixed locations. So fixed locations are again a designated specific location for a particular product. If this product is controlled at a fixed location, so and if that location is empty, then that location cannot be used for putting any other product. If it is a random location, then it doesn't matter if that location is empty or not. If system finds it at a random, it's an empty location and random, it could be the most efficient location for picking. But if it is a fixed location, then it's fixed for this item, and nothing else touches it. We have filter codes, which are set up in the release product, which are used to limit items for vendors and customers, categorize items. For example, we may have requirements to sell items that have a particular a filter, or we may have a requirement to take item to a designated area let's say a red zone or a green zone item. Along with this, we also have some physical dimensions that can be used to calculate based on the unit being used. Right, what you see here is the unit of pieces, but if there are other SKUs like a carton box or a pallet, then it will be used to calculate the utilization of a location based on the other product dimensions and the weight of the product. So that's basic inventory setup. Moving on, we have basic warehouse setup as well. A site obviously must be created. We don't have much setup going in with respect to the warehouse management and site. However, a warehouse has some significant setups. In its most basic and simplistic form, we must toggle the use warehouse management processes as yes before this warehouse could be termed as a warehouse managed entity ready for warehouse management processes. There are some additional setups as you can see, but I'm not going deeper into these. Next is location format. It's basically to identify what's the designation of location is. If you remember, we talked about there is an aisle, there are racks, shelves, and bin. If you have a floor location, then you might not bother about designated it as aisle, rack, shelf, bin, or if it could be a raw material picking location, which could again be a floor location. Location formats just identify the specific warehouse location, and then we can have a location type to filter a location that you to describe a certain type of location. So we have, like we talked about, bay door, bulk. I just said floor location. There could be a pack location and so on. Some other examples could be usage of these location types in a large warehouse where I have to dedicate location to a dock door, whether it could be an inbound or outbound or both. So moving on, next is location profiles. Well, location profiles is the most significant setup in D365 FinOps. It's used for grouping locations physically. For example, we are using capacity and volume, and we may say that we have a group, a type of locations which should be grouped together. These locations have a certain area, a certain rack, size of the rack, and a typical location profile should be attached to these locations. That's the physical aspect of a location. There are logical aspects as well, like there are business rules which could be configured. As you can see on your screen, there are certain toggles and setups that you can do if a location is license plate controlled or not, if mixed items or inventory batches are allowed at that location or not, or if a cycle counting is permitted or not, And obviously, it also determines how the items are picked and stored. The bottom section shows about the location volumetrics, and what kind of storage unit the location handles. The moment this profile gets attached to a location, it inherits the characteristic of this profile. So that's about location profiles. We have zones. You can establish some high priority and low priority storage areas, like I had said in one of the previous slides. Like if you're dealing with high hazardous chemical or a frozen entity, you can define zones and you can set priorities based on those zones, based on the various storage needs. Then we have locations. Well, locations are all about maintaining the lowest level of storage information. Locations inherit the format and can be specified in the most simplistic term as aisle, rack, shelf, bin. Locations are also used to track on-hand inventory. You can simply select a location and click on on-hand list, and it will show you all the products or inventories lying on that particular location. You can create location stocking limit to define maximum amount of product that can be stored in that particular location. For example, bulk location can hold 3 pallets, while picking locations can hold 10 cases, and dock doors and staging locations, by the nature of their floor location type, may have no limit. So there can be multiple items with stocking limits at the same location. One item can be stocked at a multiple location at the same time. Location stocking limit just help guarantees that the work is not created to request if the inventory is not to be put away in a location that doesn't have the physical capacity to carry the inventory. All right, so that's all about locations, basic warehouse setup. Moving on, the basic work setup. So if you reckon, I started the presentation by talking about what goes on in a warehouse. Warehouse work is the most important because whatever we have done so far, whatever setups we are doing, it just boils down to the fact that we are able to perform the warehouse work efficiently and effectively. The warehouse workers are able to perform all these work using the mobile device. In the most simplistic way, this is nothing but a pick work. As you can see, we have work templates that defines what work is being performed and how the work is being done. Work templates include a query that specifies the criteria for the work and it drives the work order in warehouse. The query determines the selection of work template based on a source document such as a purchase order or a sales order. So as you can see in the middle section, I've kind of exploded this, all the work order times. These are the work orders that are currently handled in D365 F&O. But like I said, this product is ever evolving. So you might see many more work order types getting included in this list from time to time. So each template must include one pick and put operation, and there can be a directive code that can link to a location directive to determine where the work is being performed. For example, the put work is being performed at the staging area, and the second put is being performed at the bay door. Right? We can have a break between the first and the second pair. Let's say I have a work and I want to take a break after I have picked the pallet or the carton boxes from my bulk and I've delivered to the stage. Now at the staging location, I might have some labeling requirements, or for whatever reasons, I want to stop the work there. So then this stop work checkbox comes into picture, which kind of stops the work. And if someone has to then pick it from the staging and put to bay door, the work has to be reinitiated. The work gets separated by different work classes. It kind of helps it helps in segregation of the work among multiple workers who are using the mobile devices. The work pool ID kind of organizes the work into groups. For example, you can create a work pool to classify work that occurs at a particular warehouse location. It'll always point to that location and override any other logic. So it's very, I mean, this module is very, very complex. It's you start simple and then you get into those complexities by doing, and it needs a lot of testing and a lot of hit and trials to get to a point where you're solving problems that a warehouse has. All right, moving on, we have location directives that is again coupled with the work templates, and it directs a worker to an appropriate location to pick the items from. For example, in a sales order transaction, a location directive determines where the items will be picked and where the items will be put. And the actions over here, location directive actions, determine with each location there are determine the most optimum location with the obviously taking the strategies into account. You can again specify if it it has to be a fixed or non-fixed location. If you relate back to what I just said in one of the previous slides about what a fixed or non-fixed location is. So that's location work templates, location directives. Now we have wave templates. Well, wave templates help enable the outbound release to warehouse process as soon as a demand order or an outbound order line is released. A wave template is basically a sequence of methods that's kind of it's checking all the sales order being put on a load, and then it's checking based on the load template which container the load should go to, and then it creates shipments. So in wave picking, the orders are combined and released at specific times. We can have a batch job as well going in, depending on the vehicle departures or shift changes and so on. It uses to balance the outbound load, because we cannot ship everything at the same time. We have to, we may define some thresholds, that we have some shipment thresholds basis which the work must be created, and some load templates which will be taken again into account to break the work down. So that's about wave template. Moving on, we have next the mobile device setups. So the whole point of setting the warehouse module up is to be able to perform these works which are being generated by the system using a mobile device. The workers will be moving around without the need of coming back to a web client and then performing or doing these processes. Instead, they will have these handheld mobile devices on which they will be just doing these work querying items and so on. So the capability is quite rich. So before menus and menu items can be viewed in the warehousing app on a mobile device, the corresponding setups need to be completed. In advanced warehouse management, you can set up multiple menu structures according to the requirements in the warehouse for this purpose. The mode work refers to a warehouse work, that is a registration of a transaction. There is another mode which is not seen here, that is called indirect, which is nothing but some indirect inquiries or like common features like logging off and all. It's separate from the picking and putting work that usually happens. So mode work creates work, and if the existing work is checked, it determines it determines whether how to use the predefined work, and there are different user strategies or system strategies that come into picture. So we can have various strategies, permutations, and combinations with which we can use the mobile device menu items. And the mobile device menus are nothing but to structure the menu items. So if it is an outbound work, then if I've created outbound mobile device menu items, I will stack all the outbound menu items into outbound mobile device menu and so on. So again, device users need to be set up as well. And if we are doing packing, then we might have to do some extra setups for this worker to be able to use the pack station. Otherwise, we have to create worker passwords. We may allow the worker to override a put location or a pick location, depending on if worker is not happy with system assigning a location and she wants to override, so then she can do it. So that's all about all the setups. Well, I kind of ran a sprint because I just wanted to save some time. I think I'm already over time, but this is how the mobile device looks like. This is the previous avatar of the mobile device. This is in the new world. The mobile device is much peppier, much nicer interface, which we'll see in a few moments from now. All right. Lastly, just to sum it all up, we have inbound work. As you can see, this is a warehouse. We have work templates, location directives, and waves going in. Well, waves are only required for outbound work, and waves are required for outbound work along with work templates and location directives to create work. The work then is executed on the mobile devices. It could be a receiving location or a bay door or some value-added services like cycle counting and so on. And on the other hand, the inbound only uses work templates and location directives for executing the work. In summary, it's again pre-advised, the ASNs we were talking about, where whoever is performing the receiving work needs to know what is being received, what kind of equipment will be required, what labor will be required to be able to receive the inventory. It could be checked and straight away sent to a cross-docking door. For example, let's say I am a distributor, but I am doing a direct delivery. So I will not stack the product in my warehouse, I will instead receive it, and just for the sake of distributing it to my retailer, I will cross-dock it and send it out without going through the put away process. So the put away is a separate process within the warehouse. The items are constantly being put away to storage, and then from those locations can be picked and packed and then dispatched. So we are using mobile device for all these work. This is a cross-door schema, a cross-docking schema, wherein my the incoming trucks have docked in and the items are being taken to the outgoing docks. And this is a representation on how the cycle counting happens. So we'll see these processes in a few moments from now. Again, inbound flow, we have source document, a purchase order. We register the inventory using mobile device. We have location directives and work templates at play. Work gets created and processed using a mobile device. Same for the outbound. And warehouse management in action. So, I've taken a lot of time. Rachit, I think I can comfortably hand it over to you. If you could show us quickly the mobile device app setup.
Sure, Debashish. Thanks a lot for that information. I'm sure we will have a lot of great feedback for you. Everyone is very excited. So we'll continue with the flow. Really appreciate the deep insights and the level of detail you have talked about, especially with the visuals. It really became a lot clear today because at least from a technical perspective, people just know that, okay, it's a bulk location or pick location, but I believe most of people have seen it today, how they look in real life. All right, so I'll share my screen and I will quickly show you guys what this new warehouse management app setup process looks like. So it can be a bit technical, but what I'll try to do is keep it on a simple front, and then I will hand it over to Prashant. So what you see is a new UI of the warehouse management app which Microsoft released. And if you have used advanced warehousing in the past, you obviously will notice that it looks pretty much clean, a new UI. So how to configure this app is basically there are a few setups which I'll show, but the main thing which you should remember is that this is only the UI. The app talks to the finance and operations through XML files, and all the business logic still resides in the Dynamics 365 back office finance and operations application. The app itself does not contain any business rules when you are processing the functionalities. So how do we set up? It's basically a few things. First, what you have to do is you have to go into your Azure portal and do a new web app registration. So what this does is it creates a layer of security when you are trying to connect. So basically you have to do, let's say, just for demo, I'll give it a name. And one thing to remember is we cannot have multi-tenant web apps for the warehouse management application. So it has to be single tenant. You click on register, and once you click on register, it creates an application ID. So this is what becomes your application ID, which you have to define in your configuration. And then what you have to do is you have to attach a certificate or a secret. So there are two options here. One is you upload a certificate, which basically is the public part of your certificate. So the IT team knows how to create certificates, and each certificate has two parts, a private part and a public part. So the public part gets uploaded in the Azure portal, and the private part gets installed on the device where the app is being used. Or another quick way to use is by generating a client secret. For enterprise grade applications, it is recommended to use a certificate. For this demo, we created a new client secret. So basically you can define a secret and give it some time and just click on add. So what it does is it generates a secret value, which is only visible when you generate it. So you can copy it and you have to keep it safe. After you create this application ID, what you have to do is you have to do few setups in Dynamics 365. First thing you have to do is in the feature management, you have to enable a feature. So I'll just show you which feature is that. Sorry, on the enable date. Okay, so there is this feature which was released, user settings, icons, and step titles for the new warehouse app. This feature has to be enabled in the application if you have to use the new app. After this, what you have to do is you have to create a user in the system, which will be used for your warehouse device. So let me just see. So we have created a user WM app. So if you will notice, I have just given a junk email address. This doesn't matter. What matters is that this user needs to have the warehouse mobile device user security role attached to it. Once these two things are done, then the third step is in Azure Active Directory applications form, which is in your system administration module, you have to create a new record where you have to give the client ID. So this client ID is coming from your Azure portal where you, when you created an app registration, this is the client ID which goes in the Dynamics. And here you attach the name of the user under which this app will run. So these are the things which we do in finance and operation. There are a few more things. What we have to do is, Debashish already mentioned that we have to create warehouse workers. So here you can define the user ID and you can actually change the passwords which they will be using to log into the warehouse application. Another thing is you also need to have some warehouse devices defined in the system. This is where you can define which type of scanning devices you are using, and these gets linked to your user ID. Now this is the backend setups which is required in your Azure portal and finance and operations. What you can do is you can install the app from the Windows Store or the Google Play Store. And what you can do actually is once you install the app, you have to click on edit connection or create a new connection. And when you do that, what you have to do is basically, I'll just show you. So this is where you define the settings. So here, if you are using a client secret, you define a client secret, you can give a connection name. This is your Azure application ID, and this is the secret value, which is always hidden. Then your Azure AD resource is the URL of your Dynamics application. Make sure you don't have a slash in the end, otherwise you will get an error. Then this is your tenant, and this is your default company where you log in. One thing which I forgot to mention is if you use the certificates while configuring the app, you can actually generate a JSON file and a QR code so that it becomes easy for users to set up their application and the warehouse management app. So that's the setup which is needed. So you can connect, and I will log in with my user, and I can give my password, and I can sign in, and then I can perform my warehouse operations. So that's it from my side with regards to the setup and configuration on the app. I will now hand it over to Prashant to show you some business processes in action. Thank you. Over to you, Prashant.
Thank you, Rachit. So, okay. I don't know. The screen share option is actually disabled for me. Just give me a minute. Okay, Richard. So just give me 2 minutes. I'll reconnect, and because I think I'm logged in as a guest. That's the reason it's not letting me.
Let me change you. Let me change your role. Let me see if I can do that.
Check it now, Prashant. I just did it.
Yeah. It's working. Okay, team. So yeah, you guys are able to see my screen? Huh?
Yes.
Yes, all good.
Yes.
So I'll be talking about several processes like which Debashish has discussed in terms of like what we pick and what are all the picking we do, and how do we receive items from vendor into the warehouse, and how do we ship them out to the customer. So the very first thing is like I would like to talk about a purchase order which I have already created and confirmed it. So I'm not going to talk about like how am I going to create the purchase order and doing the confirmation, and I'll be purely talking about like what happens when a purchase order is being sent out by the vendor, and how do we receive it into the warehouse. So this is my purchase order, which I have already created into the system. So this particular purchase order, I've created a product for the demo purpose, and I'm trying to bring in this particular product into 24 warehouse of quantity 5, and the unit for this particular product is currently eaches, right? So what happens is here is like I think they mentioned about the mobile device menu items, right? So the mobile device menu items, we all have something called purchase receive. So this particular operation when I perform on a mobile device app, on a warehouse app, it's actually going to create a work. It is basically set to mode work, and use existing work is set to no. So basically I'm going to create work out of this process, which will which is nothing but in our case, because if this is a purchase order, it's a put away work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform this operation on the warehouse app. So I've logged into this particular app, like I'm currently into the 24 warehouse. Again, I can have the user assigned to multiple warehouses. I mean, there is no restriction, like one user can only work on one warehouse. I can have multiple warehouses assigned to that particular user ID, because my purchase order, which I'm trying to receive, is into my warehouse 24. I'm logged into the 24 warehouse, and so this particular menu item is under inbound menu, and this is what I'm going to perform now, right? So all I'll scan the purchase order first. Yeah. So the moment you scan the purchase order, basically it's asking me to scan the item here. So I mean, again, scanning the item could be barcode driven, or one can enter the part number manually as well. So it depends like what kind of setup we have done. So I'm going to do it in a simple fashion, right? I'm going to put the item number, right? So it is asking me like now the next question, it is asking me like how much quantity I want to receive. So I would like to receive the whole quantity. Basically I have 5 here, right? I'll enter the quantity, right? So here in this case, it's just kind of asking me to confirm like if everything looks good, like the kind of purchase order number. I mean the purchase order you're receiving, is this the right product? What's the quantity you're receiving, and what's the unit of this particular product you're receiving into? Okay, so I see everything looks correct in place. I'm just going to hit OK button. Okay, now here this particular product, it is actually set to a tracking dimension where it has a batch that needs to be captured while receiving. Like again, like I've been answering questions like, while we are receiving it from the vendor, we can assign a batch. We can also make it automatic, like system can assign a batch while receiving this particular. But in order to explain this, I'm going to enter the batch number manually here. I can enter the expiration date, and this is an additional option. Yeah, so we are good with the receiving part of it. Now system has actually, I mean, if you look at the info log here, it just said the work has been created. So I can go back to my purchase order now, right, into D365, and when I look at my work details, so it has created a warehouse work for me, right? So here in this case, what the system is telling me is like I have to pick it from the input location. So Devesh is mentioned like we can have a default receiving location for a particular warehouse, which is RECV here in this case, and depending on the location directive setup, I'm actually moving it to another location, which is FL001, right? So I mean, this is another operation where we are trying to take this particular work and put it away. Yeah. So this is the mobile device menu item which I'll be using. I mean, the naming says like it is a put away for the products which we have received in the RECV location, and we are going to scan this work ID in this case here. Right. So it's telling me that I'm trying to pick this from the RECV location. So system has already created the target license plate. Now this is mobile device setup driven. It is giving me the item number, the quantity, and the info. I mean, the product description as well. So I've just double checked the the details, and I'm going to hit on OK. The next screen, it talks about like where am I actually putting it to. So it exactly matches with the work details here. So it is telling me, I have to put it to FL001 now. Okay. Now there was another discussion which we had, like, we were talking about the worker setup where we had an option against the worker where he can override the put location. So that's the reason we have this option where I can actually override this location and move it to some other location. But I'm just, moving it to the same location for now. So, but depending on the setup on the work info section of the worker, we can actually see these options again, right? So I'm going to put it to the FL001 location here. Yeah, so the work is complete now. So if I come back to D365 and just refresh my page, I have the work closed and I've moved it to the FL001 location here in this case, and this is my target license plate. So I mean, just to understand, like I can go to this license plate, I can look at the on-hand list. So I can see a quantity of 5 against this location for this license plate for the product, and I have my batch number as well, displayed here. So we have display dimensions options where you can actually minimize the dimensions you want to display, and you can include whatever dimensions you want to display on the on-hand screen. So we are good with the put away, right? The next thing I'm going to do is like I have created a sales order, so I'll have to do the reservation. Let me just pull the sales order for you. Yeah, so this particular sales order, it's the same product, and I've given a quantity of 5, and I'm trying to pick it from the 24 location again, right? So this is being delivered to a particular customer. Now here in this case, I mean this comes under an outbound process, right? The purchase order was actually receiving into the warehouse, that was falling into the inbound transaction, and this is an outbound transaction where I'm trying to ship out this particular quantity of this particular item to a particular customer. Now here in this case, the very first thing I would like to do is reserving this particular quantity. So I'll go to the inventory tab here, click on the reservation button, and I'm going to, I can either enter the quantity here manually, or I can directly, if I'm trying to reserve the whole thing, I can directly click on the reserve lot button. So the reservation is done here. Okay, I've logged the reservations. Basically, I've logged it at site, warehouse, and inventory status level. And the next thing what I'll do is basically, I mean, next thing is basically, releasing it to the warehouse where Debashish talked about like the wave template, the location directives, and the work template. So basically, all three of them work, in sync. So wave template is basically telling me like what are all the methods which are involved, where I'm trying to create work for this, and my work always has a pick and put location. So those pick and put locations are actually driven by the location directives. I mean, that's not the only, I mean, location directive is actually an extensive functionality in warehouse management. You can drive using a particular unit of that particular product. You can also, set thresholds like how much quantity you can pick. You can, I mean, there are different ways, different types of location directives which you can set up. So this is a simple one which I'm trying to discuss. So here in this case, once I've done the reservation, the very next thing is I'm going to do a release to warehouse operation here, and there are several ways. Again, I can create a load manually and release from there, and I can use this particular button as well, where the system automatically creates the shipment, loads, and it also creates the work at the same time. Where the manufacturing industry is quite huge, and there are like thousands of orders which are coming in day in day out, so it's not possible for the user to actually go to each and every order and keep pressing this button. So we have a job which we can use as part of the warehouse management, right? So this is called release to automatic release of sales orders, automatic release of sales transfer orders. So basically what it's doing is this runs on a timely basis. You can set up a frequency. It has a records to include option as well, like what kind of orders you want to pick. Let's say you want to only pick open orders where the reservation is. I mean, it also does the reservation job here. So this is a kind of functionality which Microsoft has introduced. You can set up this job and you can actually release the orders which are actually meeting that criteria, whatever query you have set up under this particular job, and it starts creating warehouse work for that. So that's a bulk option kind of, I would say, to release thousands of order at once. So here in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to release it manually. I'll click on this particular button. Yeah. So my system has created a shipment. My system has created a wave here, and this is actually submit to a particular batch. So the system will run this particular wave. It'll look at all the methods which are included under that particular wave template, and it starts creating work for us. So it might take just the yeah. So this is completed successfully now. Just refresh my screen. Yeah, I can see my work is created here. So yeah, so here my work is telling me that for this particular order, I have inventory and at this location of I could have multiple license plate, I could have one license plate, multiple batches, it could be anything. So this is telling me that I'll pick the inventory from this particular location, and the next thing what I'll do is I'll actually move it to a pack location. So I mean, you might be wondering, like, why do we have this work type of print? So at times business requires to print the license plate label which we have picked, and that license plate label could be set up with your own attributes. You can include multiple values, or like the batch number, the license plate, the order number, the customer where you're delivering it to. So there is a document routing layout setup. There is a document routing setup as well. I mean, I couldn't do a printer setup here, but I could show you, like, how the license plate label records gets inserted into the system. So the first thing I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to start picking this particular work. So just to show you, I have created a worker myself, and like as I said, I was able to add multiple warehouses to this particular user ID, right? So that I can just change the warehouse on the warehouse app, whichever warehouse I'm performing an operation on. It could be purchase receiving or sales order picking or even cross docking, etc., etc. So this is how I'm going to create a worker profile. And I was talking about like the put location override, and we have several other options. I mean, a worker can be a cycle counting supervisor as well in case of to review or approve cycle counting work which is created manually or system guided. So this particular setup is really critical in terms of picking and picking the inventory from a particular location and putting it to whichever location the location directive is set up to. It could be a pack location, it could be a stage location, or we can directly move it to the bay door location as well, where we are shipping out the goods to the customer. So going back to my work, I'll just have to scan this work ID. Okay. Yeah, so there are two things here. First of all, I'm not in the right menu item. It should be actually, under the outbound process. That's the reason it throws an error, the work class is not valid. And second thing is I have to make sure I'm into the right warehouse where I'm performing this operation. So this particular work is actually created under 24 warehouse. So I have to make sure I'm in the same warehouse. So I can just go back to the original menu, look at the change warehouse option, and I can see I'm already into 24 warehouse. So I don't have to change the warehouse here. So I'll just go back again. So my sales picking actually falling under the outbound menu. I'll click on the outbound menu. There are two things here, like sales picking system directed, sales picking user directed. System directed is something where a lot of things come into picture, like the priority of the work template, and system actually guides you which work you will be performing first. But when it comes to user directed, for our case, I'm picking the user directed because I can actually scan the work which I want to pick. Basically, I mean, this could be, I mean, I could give a typical business case where, let's say, if this customer is of higher priority, right, and I want to have this option on my menu item where I can simply pick this particular inventory for this particular customer first, and then ship out the goods at the earliest. Okay, so scanning a license plate, basically it's asking me which license plate you want to pick for this particular item here. So I can actually, I can get these details in multiple ways here. So here in this case, I'm trying to pick it from FL001 location here. Okay, I have several license plate. I can pick any of the license plates here. I'll scan the license plate here. Okay, now it's asking me, like, because like as I said, a license plate is kind of shares uniqueness with the location. I cannot move the same license plate to another location. So what I have to do is, system is asking me, either you generate a target license plate using auto license generation on the mobile device menu item, or I can enter it manually as well. So here in this case, I'm going to enter manually. Okay, so I've picked it from FL001 location. In the previous screen, we were seeing FL001 location. Now it's telling me where to put. So it's telling me that I have to put it into pack location, and this is my target license plate. So I'm just going to click on OK button here. Okay, so the work is now completed. Right, it's in closed status, and yeah. So like again, as Dave mentioned, packing and containerization is actually really specific to that particular customer. Some customers might not require packing because they might actually receive the product from the vendor in a perfectly packed manner. They can simply move it to bay door, once they pick it. Or at times there are few customers. Let's say if I'm the one inside the warehouse who is picking, and I have a customer requiring that I have to pack them into smaller pieces, and they need a particular container size dimension where they want to move it to. So I mean, packing and containerization is a feature which helps us to pack it into different container types of different sizes and dimensions here in this case. So the next operation I'm going to perform is packing, right? So excuse me. So what I'll do basically when I come to the packing station is either I scan the target license plate ID, or I can scan the shipment ID. So if I go back to the pack station, it's asking me whether you can either you can scan the license plate or the shipment ID. So here in this case, I'm going to scan the license plate ID. Yeah. So what system does is, the moment I scan the particular license plate ID, it is telling me what are the open lines which I need to pack into a container and then move it to the final shipment location. Now here in this case, I can see the same line being displayed in both the fast tabs, the open lines as well as all lines. The difference is the packed quantity is still 0. So the moment I start creating a container and click on pack, everything moves down to all lines and the packed quantity becomes 5. I'm going to do that now. So I'm just going to create a new container. Okay, now it has created a container ready automatically. Now it depends on the packing profile and the container packing policy setup. I've also defaulted the container type as well, just to make sure I have the maximum dimensions where I can put in any kind of inventory. So this has generated a container ID. It is telling me what container type I am picking into. Right? I'll just click on OK. So the moment you see the container ID value gets updated here, the next thing is to pack this particular line. Because it's a single line, I can simply click on pack here. The moment I do that, this particular line vanishes from this open lines fast tab and it comes into the all lines, where now the packed quantity is updated to 5 and the remaining quantity is 0. So the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the container, because that's how, once I close the container, it is telling me the next location where this will be directly moved using a forklift or a whichever approach we have. So it will be moved to a bay door location. I just have to enter the tracking number. See, tracking number is purely carrier driven. Let's say if a particular carrier is actually delivering these goods for you to the customer, they supply some tracking numbers which we can use, which are not in use, and they will also be, I think, feeding us with which are in use or which are not in use. I mean, we don't have much of validation here. We can enter the number. I mean, I'm just randomly entering any number here. I'm capturing the total weight actually, which is going into this particular container as well. Get system weight functionality is basically looking at the the dimensions of the container, the dimensions of the product itself, the tare weight, the net weight, and it's trying to give the, get the details for us. So I'm not going to click on OK here. So that's how my packing is complete now for this particular product. So if I go back to the sales order, okay, so the rest of the process will still remain same. Like it's within D365 where you're trying to confirm the shipment, send out an ASIN, and stuff. There are different ways which we can actually do it. So typically, so this is where I was talking about receiving a purchase order, putting away it to a particular location, creating warehouse work for a sales order, picking it up, moving it to the pack location, packing it into a particular container with certain dimensions where we are trying to capture the weight which is going into that particular container. We're also capturing the tracking number which is required by the carrier, and so this is how, like, a typical sales order can be moved to a staging location here in this case. Okay, so I hope I'm not going too fast. Just let me know if that is the case. And yeah, the next thing I was talking about is, I'm going to talk about is, let me do a cross-docking. Okay, so cross-docking for me, let's say it's a warehouse which does not, it does not have much workers which can actually do the picking and putting it to the beta location. And I mean, there are very less number of workers, or in cases where I don't have to do the picking, the format in which I'm actually receiving it from the vendor, I can directly move it to the bay door so that it gets shipped to the customer. So in this case, I'm going to do a cross-docking, planned cross-docking. That's what I'm going to talk about here. Okay, so what is happening is I have a demand in the form of a sales order for a particular product, and I have my purchase order as well, which is my supply. So I can actually, I did not receive my purchase order. I can still reserve my sales order against that particular order in total quantity, right? And what happens is the moment I start receiving the purchase order, when I discuss the process of receiving a purchase order, it created a work. So what it does this time is it is still going to create a work, but this time rather than moving it to a particular bulk location or a Picface location or whichever location, or even to a matter of fact like a fixed location, it is directly creating a work where the put location will be bay door for me. So that's what it is actually trying to do. It's a feature which I had to enable using planned cross docking and using the planned cross docking using the location directive setup. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to create a sales order. So I've done this setup, this cross-talking template for a different warehouse. So I'm going to create a sales order, which is my demand in that particular warehouse here. Save this particular order. So I have my demand into the system now, right? So let me try and release it, and let's say what system says. Okay. Okay. Now system throws an error. It clearly tells me that I don't have the cross-dockable quantity here, which means I don't have a purchase order with this particular quantity where it has automatically created the work for me, and I'm moving it to my bay door location. Now I'll leave the sales order as is. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to create a purchase order. let's say I'm receiving more than the quantity which is required by the sales order here. All I have to do is I have to save this now, right? Now I'll go back to my sales order. Now it's purely a setup where when I want to reserve the quantity against the sales order. I mean, that depends on the cross-docking template, but I want to do it even before I receive this particular purchase order into the system. So if I perform the same operation now, release to warehouse, it's actually going to create my shipment ID, my wave ID, everything else. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'll start receiving the purchase order. I mean, as a regular process, we'll first confirm it. Okay. So let me do a purchase receiving. Sorry, just give me a minute. Yeah. Now I'm doing a, same exact process what I did earlier when I was trying to receive a purchase order into 24 warehouse, right? So I'm going to scan the item. So it's asking me to enter the quantity. So I'm going to receive the full quantity here. Yeah, I'm just double checking all the values and I'm going to hit OK on this one. I'm going to enter a batch crosstalk some number. Yeah, the work is now complete, which means the receiving process has created a work for me now, right? So now when it comes to work, we have to look at two different things here. So we want to look at whether for my sales order, I have my work created where I'm moving this particular goods directly to the pay door or not. Let me just go ahead and see if any work is created. Now, just to tell you, I'm looking at the sales order now. This is my sales order. And you can see the work is created where it is actually getting it directly from the default receiving location to bay door. Now this is from a sales order per se, but the total quantity which I have received on the purchase order is 10. So I only need 5 for this particular sales order. At the same time, there will also be another work which is created for the rest of the quantity where I'm moving it to the regular location. So I'll just have to go to the purchase order here. Yeah, so this is the rest of the quantity, which is 5 here, where I'm moving it from RECV location to the bulk location. So because the demand had the requirement of only 5, system has created a crosstalk work for 5 quantity where I'm moving it to a bay door location directly. And the rest of the 5, it is moving to a regular put away location, which could be driven using the location directive setup. Here in this case, it is bulk 001. So that's how a planned cross-docking will help us to get rid of the inside warehouse picking, putting it to a Picface location, packing, etc., and you can directly move it to a bay door location. So this was, I mean, it's a typical and a simple example for planned cross-docking, and again, we have different ways which we can deal with it. Okay, so this was about the planned cross-docking, and I wanted to talk about. So Rachit, we have good time, to discuss transfer process as well. It might take another 15 minutes.
Sure, mate, go for it. I think we all are loving what you guys are showing. So
Okay.
go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. So the next thing is my transfer order processing, right? So Yeah, so here I'm going to create a new transfer order, right? So basically I'm transferring from one warehouse to another warehouse within the same legal entity, right? When it comes to transferring from one legal entity to another legal entity, that becomes intercompany transfer, which I'm not going to talk about now. So this is where a typical example where you might have a requirement in a particular warehouse, but you have the inventory in another warehouse, which you can bring in using the transfer process. So here in this case, I'm transferring the goods from warehouse 51 to 61. I'm going to add my product. Just created another product here. Again, see, there are two different processes involved in transfer order. One is transfer issue, where you are trying to ship out from a particular warehouse, and transfer receive, where you're trying to receive it into a particular warehouse. So here, this is my shipping warehouse, and this is my receiving warehouse. Again, the process is almost same for a sales order. First thing is I'm going to reserve this particular quantity. Let me just change the quantity here. So I'm going to reserve the quantity first. Right? Then I'm actually going to do the release to warehouse process, and it's actually going to do the same thing what it did earlier when it comes to a sales order. It's going to create work for me where I can pick it from a particular location and move it to a another location. Now here in this case, I have made it really simple. I have got rid of the packing process because that I have explained as part of the sales order. I can directly move to the Bader location and receive it to the other warehouse. So I'm going to click on release to warehouse here. Let me just refresh screen. Yeah, so it has created my transfer picking work for me, right? Under 51 warehouse. So I'm going to now go to my warehouse app. Again, like just want to make sure I'm in the right warehouse. I'm into 51 warehouse. Now this is an outbound process again, because you're shipping goods out of your warehouse. So you have to go to the outbound menu. I mean, that's how we talk in regular terms, but there is no system restriction as such where you cannot have that into a different menu. You can have different menus as per the requirement, as per the business cases, and you can move the menu items to those menus. So here in this case, I'm going to do the transfer pick here. That's the menu item which I'm going to do, use and perform the picking. I'm going to scan the work ID. It's asking me to get the license plate which you want to pick. Then I can go to inventory. Just a minute. That's from LP015. Okay. This is my location. This is my license plate. I have enough quantity here. I'm going to scan this license plate here. Yep. I'm going to enter the target license plate again. Now I'm going to put it to the Bader location from where it will be manifested to the truck. I'm just going to hit OK button here. The work is complete. I'll go back to my work, refresh the page. It is closed now. So basically, this target license plate where I'm looking at, now I've moved all the inventory to my Bader location here. By 51. Okay, that could be a refresh issue. So now I'm ready to, the next thing what I do is I'm actually, transfer. I'm shipping this particular transfer order, right? So that's a process within D365 where I'm going to go to the load details page. I'll create an outbound shipment. I can give today's date. and I'll do a post ship transfer. Now this is dependent on a parameter under transport management, which I've enabled. So it's actually doing the shipment process for us so that the transfer order changes the status to shipped and it's ready for receiving it to the other warehouse. So I'm going to process this post ship transfer. I go back to my transfer order. The status is now shipped. Okay, which means it's ready to be received into the other warehouse, which is warehouse 61. Now, the option which I'm going to use, let me just first change the warehouse here. Yeah. So again, so my transfer here, I think we have to make sure, I mean, the system does not allow us in current situation to use the transfer order number and receive it to the warehouse. So but it does allow us to actually use the license plate here in this case and receive it to the warehouse. So we did have a target license plate against this particular inventory, which we have created. Right, I'm going to scan and like if you ask me like in real time case, how is the person who is receiving will have an idea here in this case, like what's the license plate, we can print a license plate label and put it onto the box. In case if I was packing this particular transfer order using the packing and containerization process, then my license plate will be my container ID. So current system functionality either allows you to use the target license plate if it is not packed into a container, or you can use the container ID in order to receive the goods into the receiving warehouse. So here, because I haven't done any packing here, I'm going to scan the target license plate here. Right. So click on OK. So this menu item basically it's kind of performing both the operations at once. It's kind of receiving the transfer order and putting it away to the desired location again. But again, this can be split into two different menu items. But just in the interest of time, I've made a menu item where I'm performing both the operations at once, and I can still move the goods to the required location. So I'm going to pick it from the receiving location. This is my target license plate. This is the item I'm receiving into the warehouse, the quantity. Okay, and I'm putting it to this particular location. Now this is purely driven using the location directives again, right? So I'm going to put it to this particular location here. Yeah, so we have now successfully received the transfer order into the receiving warehouse. Here in this case, it's 61, right? So, and we have the goods into the warehouse 61 here for this particular transfer order. So that was more on a transfer order process, but at the same time, like my mobile device has a lot of indirect menu options, right? So let's go to 24. So I have another menu which is called inventory or inventory management, where I can do an item inquiry, I can do a location inquiry, I can do a license plate inquiry, I can do spot counting, I can do a cycle counting guided, where we have to, create cycle counting templates where system automatically creates cycle counting work at a particular interval, right? So there is a requirement where again this is kind of a hygiene or I would say maintaining uh, uh, the integrity with the inventory, what we're actually looking at the system and what is physically there on the location, right? We just have to make sure we run this periodically, and we make sure the inventory on the system is actually matching with the inventory on the physical location. So these are several other options which have their own significance. So I'm just going to do a simple license plate inquiry here. I mean, I can scan any license plate from the on-hand screen, and it's going to tell me what are all the items which are actually lying under that particular license plate. So let's say if I go back to my product here. I mean, this is not a typical process. What a warehouse worker does, basically warehouse workers is directly going to the location and is scanning the license plate on the pallet, where going to that particular location. But here I'm just doing the exact process, but inside the system. So here in this case, if I take this particular product, right, this has this particular license plate. I'm going to scan this license plate. Yeah, so system is telling me that for this particular license plate on this location, I have a total quantity of 37 eaches, right? For this particular demo product, this is the item number. And it also tells me the batch number, right? Against this particular license. So that's a kind of option we have. We can also do we can also do the location inquiry. I mean, I can simply say FL001. Now it'll ask me, let's say, there could be multiple items with different batches and with different license plates again. So this is telling me this is the license plate, this is the item number, this is the quantity, the batch number. Again, we have another batch number with another license plate, and we also have another product on the same location with this license plate 24. And there is no batch number here, probably. That depends on the setup of the product here. So there are several other options which are called indirect menus, where you can do an inquiry to maintain the hygiene and to maintain the integrity between the information what you're actually looking at on the system, as well as what the physical location has. So this is a really good feature when it comes to advanced warehouse management. And so it helps us to actually, again, to maintain the kind of inventory data exactly the same in both the systems. So that's all from my side. And thank you very much for your patience. I hope I was not too fast. And thank you very much for the time, guys. Thank you, Rajat. Over to you.
Thanks, Prashant. Thanks, Debashish. Debashish, do you want to come and show your video? We are speechless, but if anyone from the audience wants to unmute and give a feedback, or they want to say something to you guys.
Thanks. Great session, Prashant. Thank you.
Session was awesome. This is Umesh, Debashish sir, and Prashant sir. It was awesome, Rajat, for the Azure setup. I have done quite a long time, but now latest I have not done, but definitely people are asking. So I will definitely write a blog on it. But today's session for me as an infrastructure guy, the session was marvelous. I was connected throughout the session. It was very much understanding for me. Thank you, Debashish and Prashant sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, guys, that was definitely above and beyond.
I think
yes,
we should have set the expectation from this. I think Rachit, you did that briefly, that it would stretch a bit, and here we are. But I hope people who have stuck around for so long have got some good ideas, business perspectives, and obviously that was a great demo by Prashant. So if you have any queries, I think Rachit just mentioned in the chat window his email ID for the user group. Please feel free to drop in whatever queries you have. We will love to go back to our canvas and try to bring out solutions, because you cannot simply, move your hand with a sleight of hand and bring out a rabbit out of a hat. It's a very, very complex area. You have, like I said, sometime when I was presenting, that we have to go back to our, and start simple and see what's fitting, what's not, what's interchangeable, what's not. So solutioning is part of that. That is solutioning part. So yeah, but feel free to send us your queries, and if you want to take some detailed sessions, and probably we'll be happy to support. That's it.
That was really an amazing session, Debashish and Prashant and Rachit as well. By the way, I have shared the link where you can actually provide your comments for this particular session. And please feel free to join the group. I've shared the link. If you like this session, please do share it among your network and your friends, so that they can also utilize, they can get the benefit of this, and we can have latest updates of the upcoming sessions. And believe me, there are wonderful sessions coming up front, and we'll let you know. So by the way, if any one of your colleagues have missed it, we will have this recorded session in YouTube channel. Rachit will definitely post that in the group. And keep watching and stay tuned.
Cool. So I just want to take a few minutes so that we can update everyone what's coming ahead. Before that, Prashant, do you want to say anything as a closing remark? Because you did a great job with the warehousing app. I mean, this was the deepest I have seen in terms of demos. So a great job done by you. We really applause for you, Prashant.
Thank you, Rachit. Thank you very much, and thanks for giving me such a platform and an opportunity. Thanks to Debashish and all you guys. Yeah, so I always was curious, and I'm always intent to share my knowledge with people under the community. So it was a great platform to be honest. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Glad to hear that. So if anyone wants to do a demo, share their knowledge with the community, please feel free to reach out to us. I mentioned in the chat, we can provide you with a Dynamics finance and operations environment to do your setups and perform the session. I will quickly share my screen because I want to tell you something which is equally exciting. What Debashish and Prashant have shared us today. Just a minute. Yeah, it's always when you have to share the screen, your system dies. Just a minute. Okay, let me know when you can see it.
System is probably tired, Rachit, from such a long session, I believe.
Can you see my screen of upcoming sessions?
Shows connect with us.
Just a minute.
Yeah, we can see.
What do you see? Connect with us or upcoming sessions?
Connect with us.
Connect with us.
Just a minute. Give me a minute. Sorry for the delay, just 1 minute. Okay, now it's responding. Okay, let me know. Can you see upcoming sessions?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, guys, so I am very excited to announce that we have something very exciting lined up for this group. We want this group to learn, grow, and share with each other and learn something new every day. So here is a glimpse of what's coming up. We are partnering with ANZ D365 FinOps team and Pakistan user group, and with the help of Microsoft, we are planning a series of sessions on the upcoming new features on the platform convergence. This will be a series of 5 sessions, which will be conducted every week starting from 25th September till the end of October. So we will keep you busy. We want your weekends. These will be 1 to 2 hour sessions, but these are really important things which are happening in Dynamics space. And as a Dynamics professional, you should be aware of these. So what we will do in this session is, you can see the lineup of speakers. Everyone is here. We have Sunil Garg from Microsoft, Cameron Robinson from Velrada, Faisal Farid from Barhead, Priyanka Garg from PwC, Amna Khan from Pakistan, Preeti Singh from Velrada in Australia, myself, and Mohammad Mustajab. We will be pairing up and giving these sessions. And these will be covering all the latest features and the concepts of Dataverse, the concept of platform convergence, the new upcoming features of CRUD events in Dataverse. We will cover concepts like dual write, virtual entities, data integrators, and logic apps. We will start sharing the registration links from next week, and we need your support to run these sessions, get your feedback, and participate in these sessions. So these sessions will be a bit different. They will not be like deep dive showing you everything. These are more of an interactive sessions where you can come, we can think together. There will be ample of Q&A time in these sessions so that we can think about what's coming and how it will impact the way we work. So this is a great opportunity for everyone in this group to stay up to date with what's coming ahead. So we hope we will get your support in that. So this is what I wanted to share with you towards the end of session. We have your group of speakers. These are the sessions, and this is driven by 3 user groups. So we are collaborating with wider user groups so that we can have more audience. Our objective is to get more and more Dynamics 365 people involved in these knowledge sharing sessions. So this is coming up. Please join our groups and stay connected to get the latest notifications. And if you want to present in this group, feel free to reach out to one of the volunteers or scan this QR code. Or if you want to submit some suggestion or if you have any feedback for us, you can do that as well. You can submit your ideas. If you want to tell us a new way of collaborating with everyone, let us know. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for taking out their time and joining this session. Joining a session live is more fun. So thanks a lot for all the nice Q&A and all the discussions and appreciations you have given to the speakers. A big thanks to Debashish and Prashant for preparing this. I know you guys have been doing a lot of work over last few weeks after office hours and taking out your personal time to set all this up. So it was a mammoth effort they have done to show this to you guys. So thanks a lot, Debashish and Prashant, and also thanks to all the volunteers of the group who have worked together to make this happen. That's it from my side. Thanks, guys. If you have any feedback or if anyone wants to open up for anything, feel free to unmute yourself and say it. Yeah. We will then close in another 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think we couldn't take up some questions are pending. So please feel free to drop in your queries and we would love to take them offline. So just my ending note. Thank you, guys. That's all. Thanks, Rachit, and all the organizers from D365 UG India. We'll have much more rocking sessions coming in, I'm sure. And thanks for that lineup, Rachit, that you just explained.
Thank you.
Hey guys, just want to say great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Signing off.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. See you next time.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Prashant and Debashi,
Bye-bye.
for giving
Thank
us
you.
the session.
Bye.